Happy New Year, everyone! I hope you guys are all celebrating the transition to 2017 with your families. If you can't tell already, I have a cold, so I apologize in advance if my voice sounds weird. Today I'm going to spoil your New Year's by making a response to a Muslim creationist on evolution. Let's roll.
Whenever you have a discussion with an atheist about the existence of God, and you give them an analogy like, look at our brain, and the fact that this brain is more complex than the most sophisticated, supercomputers on Earth.
Well, no, that statement isn't exactly true. Computers and brains are two different things. How exactly are you measuring complexity? Because computers and brains can be more or less, quote-unquote, complex depending on what your measurements are. What are your variables? How are you obtaining or calculating these variables? See, when you just say that our brains are more complex than any computers, that literally means nothing unless you tell us what specifically you are comparing between the two.
They're just likely to say, no, Darwin explained it all.
What? I mean, when we see a trait or something in nature, we can make a reasonable conclusion that it formed through some sort of Darwinian mechanism, because natural selection has kinda been proven already.
Evolution explains this, evolution explains that.
Right, that's because it does. You can name any helpful or good trait of an organism, and that would possibly be explained by evolution. However, it's not just the good traits, but also the bad ones that somehow work. For humans, our bodies are very inefficient. There are many better ways to do things. For example, the photoreceptor cells in the eye are backwards. This is bad because the cell bodies can physically block the incoming light. But evolution makes it work. Another example is the blood pressure negative feedback mechanism. It involves many useless steps that are highly unnecessary. This is an expected outcome of evolution. It doesn't necessarily make things the best that it can be, but rather make things work even if they are faulty or inefficient. And a god cannot explain things like this. Why would a god put your photoreceptor cells backwards?
And they just can't even consider the possibility that there is a god.
Nope, that's wrong. We consider all possibilities. Before we knew anything about the universe, anything is fair game. The only thing is that we need evidence for whatever claim is made. Religion has no evidence. That's why we dismiss the claim. It's not that we don't even consider the possibility of a god. Of course we have. But then again, no evidence for such a claim. Besides, many atheists used to be religious. I myself am an example of that. So how can you say we don't consider the possibility of a god?
And they cannot even consider the possibility that there is design because they have this belief Darwin explained it all. Look.
I'm going to add here that Darwin and atheism are not complementary to each other. You can be an atheist and not believe in evolution. You can believe in evolution and still be religious, and I have yet to actually hear a story on someone becoming an atheist purely because of evolution. And by the way, all this time I've been playing along with your flawed word choices just for the sake of argument, but I'm going to make this clear now. Evolution is not the same as Darwin's theory of evolution. Darwin's theory is only natural selection. It is a mechanism of evolution.
Darwin didn't explain it. Darwin, in his book, The Origin of Species, only describes how you get development of life, how you can get the Great Dane and the Chihuahua from an original stock. That's about it. It can only explain how life develops.
It only explains how life evolves because it doesn't make a claim on anything else. That's like me claiming that the sky is blue, and then you come along and say, well, that doesn't explain why I failed biology class.
And even that's very questionable.
No, it's not. It's been proven and observed. Your ignorance doesn't make it questionable.
But let's just go along with their fairy tale. What they say is 3 to 4 billion years ago, there was the first self-replicating cell, and that led to the billions of species alive today.
Billions of species? There are 8.7 million species. Where the fuck did you get billions?
Okay, let's go with that fairy tale, even though we can ask, why one origin?
Well, it doesn't have to be one origin or one species. It can be a few.
Why 3 to 4 billion years ago?
Because the evidence points to that time.
Why can't we say there was 19 origins 1 billion years ago and 30 origins 2 billion years ago and 1 origin 7 billion years ago? I mean,
we don't just fucking pull these numbers out of thin air. We have dating methods. We have evidence. Again, your ignorance doesn't make it false. I suggest you to read a textbook about the various dating methods we have, then come back to apologize.
Where did they get these details from? It wasn't like somebody was sitting there and thinking, okay, life is developing, there's the first cell, and it's kind of like watching those TV programs with those horses running. Oh, now we have a new species coming out of this, and now we have this, and this whole idea that they've worked out the history of life is just nonsense. But let's just go along with their fairy tale.
I am not about to explain a whole branch of science to you in one video.
Let's ask them, where did this first cell of yours come from?
Well, evolution doesn't make a claim about the first cell. Life could have been created by a dancing pink elephant for all I care, and evolution would still hold true. So now you're questioning abiogenesis, huh? In that case, everything you said prior to this point was irrelevant.
Because remember, the first cell is not some jelly. It's not like flubber, right?
Oh, so now you claim you know what the first cell was. Fantastic.
It is like London during its busiest time. It's like, trams, buses, buildings, people working, offices, helicopters. It's teeming with activity.
And please, would you enlighten us on how you know this? How do you know the activities of that cell? Man, you should write a paper on this. This is revolutionary information. Sadly, in reality, that's not the case. The first cell was most likely much simpler than any cell we have today. So no, your premise is incorrect.
So where did this first cell come from? Francis Crick, an evolutionary atheist biologist and a Darwinist, this is what he had to say in his book, Life Itself.
I can't actually be bothered to check this quote you're about to make. I expect you to quote him accurately, so don't disappoint me.
He comes up with the idea that life was sent down to Earth by aliens, and then it developed to where it is today.
Well, Francis Crick proposed this idea as a response to criticisms of panspermia. There's a hypothesis that life travels across the universe via asteroids, comets, etc. It is therefore not unreasonable to guess that life on Earth could have started by life elsewhere. Criticisms of this idea suggest that this mode of transportation could easily destroy microbes due to space conditions and cosmic radiation. One response made to these criticisms is directed panspermia, which suggests that intelligent life forms are responsible for protection during these transportation events. These are only hypotheses of the origin of life, they're not theories. Also, one important detail you forgot is that Francis Crick later ditched the idea of directed panspermia due to the fact that RNA was the first coding nucleic acid.
Now, you may question that and say, hang on a second, that doesn't make any sense. You just said there's no design. You just said there's no God.
Dude, directed panspermia involves the transportation of life, not the creation of life. I don't know what you've been reading, but you're misrepresenting his position here.
But because he's an evolutionary atheist biologist,
nope, more like he was a molecular biologist, biophysicist, and neuroscientist.
The Darwinists don't actually question that he believes in intelligent design, because for them, as long as you don't call God the designer, you can call aliens designers. It's not really an issue. But let's just go along with that.
That's not what we mean. I know what argument you're talking about, but you are misrepresenting. This is how it goes. If we started with the premise that life on Earth was designed, which most likely was not, but for the sake of the argument, let's say that we're 100% certain life on Earth was designed, then it is much more reasonable to conclude that we were designed by an intelligent alien life form rather than by a god, because our understanding of science would suggest that to be a more likely possibility.
We can further ask the question, where did those aliens come from?
You most certainly could. That's a very valid question. However, that's not the topic we were trying to address when we suggested directed panspermia. We were looking to answer the question, how did life begin on Earth, not how did life begin in the universe? That's a separate topic. Silly creationist, you honestly thought that scientists, after years of research, wouldn't have thought of that? Fucking hilarious.
This is where Oxford biologist Richard Dawkins comes to the rescue of his buddy Francis Crick. He says, look, it's all right. What basically happened was, those aliens, they must have evolved. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. They evolved.
Yes, if we were put into place by an intelligent alien life species, then those aliens must have evolved in order to have such intelligence.
And how did they evolve? They evolved via Darwinism, by Darwinian evolution. Okay.
You fuck! Darwinian evolution is a mechanism of evolution, and of course any form of life evolution must involve natural selection. All natural selection says is that the more fit members of a population survive to pass on their genes over the less fit individuals. It's not fucking hard to understand.
So then we can ask Richard Dawkins that this stupid idea of yours, it doesn't explain where the first cell of those aliens came from.
Of course it doesn't explain that, because we are only answering the question, how did life begin on Earth? If you wanted an answer for how did life begin in the universe, we've got one for you. One word, abiogenesis.
But obviously we're not going to get the chance to actually do that, because he doesn't like debating people who actually have common sense.
You just said that all the religious people he debated have no common sense. I wonder what all those people have in common. Oh yeah, they're religious.
The fact of the matter is, whether it's Francis Crick or Richard Dawkins or Jerry Coyne or Aaron Ra or any of these guys, they have this blind belief, and this blind belief holds them in a cage.
Absolutely incorrect. It's the fact that we are open-minded that turned us into atheists. But we can use the same logic to you. Look at all these other thousands of religions that you decided is false. Why did you pick Islam? Why aren't you a Taoist? You're convinced that we're designed? Then why wasn't it Zeus who designed us? Why is it your god? The difference is that atheists actually equally consider all religions, and they are all equally ridiculous. Many religious people, on the other hand, just stick to the religion they were raised up with. Sounds fishy to me.
And it refuses to let them out. They have this blinker on. No, they can't be a god. So they look at anything and they say, yeah, that's my roadkill too. That came via Darwinism.
I'm gonna fucking strangle someone.
The fact of the matter is, this is just complete nonsense speculation, and it's very disputable.
Yep, let's discard 150 years of work just because religious nutjobs can't put down their fairy tale. You have no idea how much work is involved in our understanding of natural history. Look, if you're so sure on what you say, go on and write your paper. Write a paper detailing your research and let it be peer-reviewed. It's so funny because religious people talk so much shit on evolution, yet none of them have the balls to publish their work.
Francis Crick gave this piece of advice to biologists because he realized they might look at something and say, that's designed. So he said to them, whatever you see, remember, it evolved. It wasn't designed.
This is just full-blown conspiracy theory now.
You can clearly see that Darwinian evolution is a metaphysical research program, as the philosopher of science Karl Popper called it. It is an idea about how to get rid of the idea of God in biology.
No, you're not that special. We don't give a fuck about you guys. At best, denial of evolution is an annoyance, unless you're teaching it in schools, but otherwise the scientific community will continue to proceed with research without batting an eye to creationists.
It's not even science, it's actually a religion.
You heard it first here, guys. Science is not science. Science is actually religion.
And I'm planning on making a few more videos about why it is actually a religion, why it is actually a system with its own ethics, and it's not just science.
Sorry, man. I don't know if I'll stick around. I mean, brain cells are pretty valuable. I prefer not to lose them watching your videos. Instead, I'll lose them watching this channel.